We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
You have to let it all go, Neo. Fear, doubt, and disbelief. Free your mind.
I just want to make an impact, a positive impact on as many people as possible.
You gotta want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe.
When you're down, you might feel like you want to give up. Don't stop. Keep moving. Keep breathing.
There's a war on consciousness in our society.
There is an awakeness, an awareness that sees it all. And it's in you too. It's in all of us.
We have to stop consuming our culture. We have to create culture.
This is the G and Coletti Show.
Let's begin.
On this episode of the G and Coletti Show, we interview movement specialist Ido Portal. Ido has been a teacher and practitioner in the field of movement for years and has been exploding in popularity, mainly because of his most notable student and UFC featherweight champion, Conor McGregor. In a time when mixed martial arts has somewhat plateaued when it comes to new and disruptive techniques, Ido is bringing fighters back to basics so that they can build a better foundation from which to apply their mastery over their fighting techniques. He pulls insight from dance, capoeira, martial arts, gymnastics, and many other non-conventional methods that can expand and build upon a fighter's current skill level.
When I first came across Ido's work, I was very skeptical and I wasn't sure about the entire practice. I mean, I think it's easy to dismiss this movement stuff as some woo-woo hippie bullshit. I mean, who doesn't know how to move? Is it really worth putting in that much effort when there's so many other ways to directly achieve the benefits rather than a movement practice? For example, I could express myself through dance, get in shape at a gym, or expand my consciousness through reading or meditation. Why this? In a time when everyone wants to try out the newest and exciting training machines, supplements, technologies, I believe there's a merit in bringing things back to basics. You know, Bruce Lee once said, "I fear not the man that practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man that practiced one kick 10,000 times." I take this to mean that you have to be proficient at the basics to truly excel at anything. If our body is a vehicle and we're experiencing life through it, doesn't it make sense to really figure out how these things function?
Yeah, I think it makes sense. And I think we need to give ourselves the opportunity just to try new things. When I first, heard about Ido Portal, I really just thought about his stuff as increasing your physical abilities. So maybe you'll be more flexible, faster reflexes, all these kind of things. But what I didn't really think about was how does being in touch with your body change your intuition, change, that non-physical dimension of awareness that might make you better, that might actually let you have some pre-recognition, when the guy's going to hit or strike. And I thought that was very interesting. And he talks a bit about it.
There are infinite amount of awareness and states within you. There is an awareness to, it's a little bit like a map. And some people are walking around with an old school, a little bit outdated map with the street names kind of wrong. And other people are walking Google Maps, high definition, satellite, super accurate GPS kind of thing. Awareness can be shifted into a lot of different ways. There is not just one awareness. There is an awareness to various states and areas related to your ego, and there is awareness beyond that or behind that a lot of spiritual kind of disciplines are looking to kind of suppress the ego and be aware of something bigger.
So while I find this stuff really interesting, I hate anything that's so subjective. How do you know how in tune you are with your awareness? What level are you at? There's nothing quantified. How do you know if you...
I think that's one of your problems. Everything needs to be quantified, but it's hard to quantify. I agree. You can tell as it's getting greater or less, or sometimes you'll eat really shitty and you'll get off your diet, you won't be exercising, and you'll just feel like really cloudy sort of thing. And then when you're really in tune, like things come to you clearer. You have better intuition, whether to make a decision, it comes to you faster, whether there's that unclarity. You know what I mean? So I think
the way you're describing it sounds a little quantified. Like it seems like intuition is going to get better. So you can basically, so you don't know where you stand, where you
I can't say it's 20%, but I can say, yeah, I feel a lot clearer, better. You know what I mean?
So you don't know where baseline zero is, but you can tell if you're improving or...
And I could tell 5 years ago when I would meet someone, I couldn't really read their energy. Like I couldn't really tell, like now I could pick up on someone if I feel like a really clear, bright energy or really dark, someone that's bringing me down.
Okay, you heard it here, ladies and gentlemen. G can read energy.
No. I can just pick up on things a little bit better than I could before.
There are many gates in, and definitely movement can assist with increasing the sensitivity to various states of awareness while searching to move better and learning and reacting and operating in inside all kinds of physical tasks. You have to use kinds of states that are not the more common state of being, modern common state of being. And that's something that you've experienced. Sometimes in order to achieve, to operate in a certain surroundings, inside certain demands or situations, there is no possibility to do that with our more used state. And then you will shift your awareness somewhere else and use other tools to operate there. And it can happen inside the UFC octagon. It can be in a battle, in war. It can be a car accident. It can be a severe injury. It can be your girlfriend breaking up with you and smashing your heart to bits. It can be a lot of different things. Movement enhances that, brings that into the foreplay and kind of exposes all of those different systems and states.
So Coletti, please translate that into English for me, because I didn't 100% understand. I sort of got what he's trying to say, but I know you really like this clip.
Yeah, I think Ido's highly conceptual, but if you really take the time to listen to what he's saying, there's a lot of fact and a lot of little tidbits of genius in there. I'll let you know from my personal experience. When I was healing, obviously, I started doing different things like salsa dancing. Now, I'm not a dancer. I've never danced in my life. I started swimming. I started doing kettlebell, all these different type of movements. And I think it opened up different parts of my personality, my creativity. For instance, someone that wants to write does this thing called The Artist's Way. A lot of really popular movie scripts were written with this. And it has this task once a week where you have to do something called the artist's date. We have to do something by yourself, something odd, something just to expand your frame of reference. So it's got to be something that you would never do before. So I think that also applies to what Ido's talking about. If you never danced and you move in that way, your body will follow suit.
I understand. Agree with these different movements can open up a different sort of aspect of yourself, which makes a lot of sense. And I wonder if Ido's actually mapping it out. Are there different movements that open up different parts, or is it just doing something different? It's like you never know what you're going to get. You might just feel a deeper connection to yourself and then be able to express yourself in different ways. I find it interesting.
I like where you're going with this. Yeah. You actually want a legend or a roadmap that
I know that's
will open up some part of you.
I know that's what the Coletti manual says.
So if
salsa means I'm gonna be a better businessman.
Exactly. We'll reverse engineer it. So if you want a desired result, you can actually do that movement, and you'll get that improvement in your character.
Were you targeting anything specific when you signed up for salsa? Because I know it's a bold move for you to go to a salsa dancing class.
I was just trying to try something new. I figured, if you want to become something you've never been before, you got to try something you've never done before. I'm pretty sure I didn't make that up. I heard that somewhere.
Shaking done kind of from outside or from inside is very, very common in the animal kingdom. And also within us, it kind of was pushed into more of a neurological pathologies or issues or psychological traumas. But the fact that we've suppressed this habit of shaking trauma away, shaking pain away, shaking injuries away, shaking ourselves into movement, we've suffered a lot of the consequences. And that's something that I employ in my practice and something that I teach and use for a few years now. Some animals will shake a whole night after a certain episode. Some animals, when encountering sickness or an injury, will shake until better. Some animals will use shaking for certain developmental pieces in their physical evolution. And that's something that we should also use. And kids do that sometimes intuitively. They'll shake and you'll see them kind of singing to themselves and shaking the body with the intuition that it feels good. And that feel good thing is the way of nature making sure you do what you should be doing for your development. It's very relevant, as I said, for injuries. It's extremely relevant for traumas. And if you don't do that and you suppress it, eventually the body will shake, will create what is called the neurogenic tremor, an inside shake to get rid of certain issues.
Now, I know firsthand about your intuition being heightened after a trauma. After my accident, I was craving certain foods at certain times, say the fats and proteins when I was putting back on muscle that I had lost, or I was working out really hard, or carbs, say like the day before I was going to work out. And I felt like I was really in tune with my body. And I think that's your body kind of taking over and giving you signs to let you know what you need to heal. It's giving you the ingredients, this formula. Also in terms of swimming, I felt this intuitive feeling that I had to jump into water, which people thought was crazy because I had scars and it was going to take forever before I could jump into a bath of chlorine and bacteria. But I think that really was instrumental in me healing. And I really think that was, my intuition giving me the real formula to come back from the dead almost.
Yeah, I think this whole shaking thing does have a lot of merit. Obviously, the animals in the wild do it. If you're familiar with that, like the antelope gets chased by a lion, and if it escapes the attack, it'll go lie down somewhere and shake. Or if you're a hunter, you'll know that sometimes if you shoot a deer and it's not dead yet, it'll be shaking, trying to sort of release the trauma. But I wonder with humans, like with seizures and stuff like that, is that the body trying to sort of heal itself from some kind of overload? Maybe something's building up in your system or something not right, and the body's trying to fix it? What do you think?
It would make sense that it's similar to fainting, or even someone being knocked unconscious in boxing or in a sport. It's kind of your body telling you had enough, trying to basically take you out of a situation or give you some sign.
Control. It's like, I'm taking over.
Yeah, an override system internally.
I wonder. We'll have to look into that more.
So Ido has a very controversial view on vegetarianism and veganism. I know everybody here, especially Giovanni, really wanted to get into it with him and get his viewpoints so they can disprove or, I guess, have their rebuttals ready.
I think you were more excited because over here you're kind of outnumbered on the whole vegan versus meat eating front. So I think you were excited to get someone else to back up defense of the meat eating or the attack on the vegan diet.
Okay, let's hear what Ido's got to say about this.
Veganism is far from optimal for most people, in my experience. Just working with a lot of people, having exposure to large crowds, thousands, tens of thousands of people all over the world. I've been on the road for 6 years, and I've been working for 20 years teaching people. So I have my experience, which I draw upon, and I have my research. And definitely vegan diets are not something I would recommend. And of course, there are many individuals out there that would still able to operate on very high levels with a vegan diet. Just like there are individuals who can operate and be world champions. I had a guy in the military served with me that was running 2-kilometer runs in under 6 minutes and was waiting for us to finish our runs while smoking, a pack of cigarettes. Does it mean I'm going to start smoking to improve my endurance? Far from it. Yeah, as for the ethical argument, I think that is a pretty weak argument as well. And I recommend a book that I've been reading lately, a very interesting book. It's called A Critique of the Moral Defense of Vegetarianism. And it's by Andrew F. Smith. Highly recommend this book. So all in all, I'm not impressed with the vegan approach. I respect it. I respect those who try to do their best and use any approach, really, that they see fit by their education, capacity to understand and to use. But I definitely wouldn't recommend it to my students when they come in and are looking for a starting point.
So I don't know about Ido on this one. Obviously, I don't agree. He says that he has tens of thousands of case studies of how he's seen vegans and he knows that they're weaker. Has he ever met guys like Frank Medrano or the German strongman Patrick Bubimian, whatever the heck his name is? He's one of the strongest men in the world. He's a complete vegan. So there's people who are functioning very well in a vegan diet. Maybe some people are not doing the diet right, but to use his own example, just because someone smokes cigarettes and is a good 2-kilometer runner, just because someone eats meat doesn't make them, is not the meat that maybe is making them stronger.
I think both of your defenses are a little bit anecdotal. You're just going off like one-offs, like here and there. Like just because the strongest
examples,
guy, just because
specifics.
Like yeah, exactly. Just because he said the strongest guy in the world is a vegan doesn't mean that everybody should be
multiple
vegan.
UFC fighters.
Just because
in every sport, there are guys that are defying the odds with veganism as being their diet, that they're performing at a high level.
Okay, again, these are just like one-offs. But he mentions that people have done blood tests. And the blood tests of vegans.
I didn't hear that.
The clip, yeah, he did speak. It's not in that particular clip, but he does mention blood tests of a vegan versus a non-vegan or meat.
And what did the blood test say?
And he said the vegans score very poorly. I can look up the clip.
Score on what? What do you test on a blood test? Maybe low B12? But is that an indicator of your overall health? Absolutely not. Just because something's on your bloodstream doesn't mean that, he says
you're lacking in minerals and vitamins and minerals. There's some type of deficiencies. I believe... I want to say vitamins and minerals aren't probably exactly what a vegan can get. I think it's the amino acids is where things are a bit of an issue, or some hormones that are found in meat.
You get all your stuff. I think a lot of vegans don't do the diet properly. They just switch. They cut out the meat and they'll just eat carbs all day. And I think that's where a lot of them go wrong. But I see a lot of meat eaters that have horrible diets as well. That are
so
not
now
healthy.
The vegans are turning on the vegans. Because everybody says if you want to argue with somebody, find a vegan.
You can have a bad diet no matter what kind of diet you're doing, and you can eat properly no matter what kind of diet you're doing. I think.
Okay. With that being said, do you find it's difficult to follow a vegan diet and do it properly?
No, I think if you educate yourself, it's very easy. I think if you just try
So you think it's an education issue rather than it's just
all diets are an education issue.
No, but you need a certain level of discipline. I wouldn't say all diets are education. A lot of them are
Your own
are
diet
basically
yourself.
You're falling for your own
diet yourself.
your own
Did you not
urgings,
research?
your urgings and cravings? So you can know the information. A lot of people know the information, but is it difficult to follow it? Like obviously you're eating stuff that's not as calorically dense, other than like nuts and stuff. Do you find it difficult to get the calories? Like one of the criticisms of veganism is that people get thin. Do you find that that's because it's difficult to get a lot of calories without eating meat?
I would say it's not because they're vegan. I would say probably it's because they're not eating enough calories.
Okay, but they're not eating enough calories because they're vegan.
A lot of people who are vegan are very particular on what they eat in general because they're health conscious, so they won't eat anything. They won't eat chips either. They won't eat a lot of things that other people would consume as calories that didn't care as much. I think this question is a lifelong debate. I just don't think him saying I've had tens of thousands of people that I know are less strong. I think that's bullshit because there's people that are just as strong that are vegan. Look in the animal kingdom.
No, I think you can't critique him there because maybe that's his experience. You can't say that the 10,000 people that he dealt with, that he's lying and that's not a correct interpretation
You
of
think
his
he
own,
went and asked each one what their diet was when he met them? Or you think he met a couple of vegans that sort of gave him a stereotype that he then applied to him actually interacting with tens of thousands of people?
Well,
I think every single person that came to this event, he would ask if they're vegan or meat
No, that's
eater?
my point exactly. He knows that they're vegan, but he doesn't know that they're probably the vegans are doing it right. So if he's comparing people that eat a paleo diet and they're eating things properly versus a vegan that was not eating properly, it still would be his experience.
I think you could be just as strong, if not stronger, as a vegan versus someone who eats meat. Look in the animal kingdom. The elephant's one of the most powerful animals there. You want to be as strong as an ox? An ox eats nothing but grass.
I personally don't like that one. I know we hear about gorillas and stuff. We're not built like them. Just compare human to human. Again, I'm not agreeing or disagreeing. I know this argument can go on absolutely forever. It's probably one.
Okay, so let's end it here. I think we've put enough points into this one. Let's move on to the next.
For those of you that don't know, when I mentioned my injury in my arm, I wasn't able to move my arm for 9 months. I was completely paralyzed, including my hands and fingers. The only thing I was left with now is inability to point. Given how far I came, it's not that big a deal. Ido's the master of movement, so I figured who better to ask about learning or regaining an ability to move than the movement master himself, and give me some pretty interesting tips in trying to connect or increase your my neuroplasticity. And I think anybody can use it for anything from a sport to really anything that you wanted to learn that you're not able to do now. Check it out.
There are many things that one can pursue and attempt and try. And I have some experience working with people in similar circumstances. But I will give you an interesting direction, actually. Something that I recently learned from a very interesting martial artist I've worked with. And that's investing some time into forming the impression of the movement. And that's something that many people are not really aware of. So, for example, when you point a finger at something, there is a certain signature to the movement, a certain impression that takes hold in the nervous system. And it is an impression that will kind of appear when you're performing the movement and when you're observing others performing the movement. Hence, what would be the approach when you can't perform the movement? It would be to watch others do it. And actually, being very repetitive and almost obsessed with getting that impression back would be a huge piece in starting the whole process of recovering that movement aspect, and probably sits in the heart of the neuroplasticity concept. And you can do that by simply using the human archive of videos that is called YouTube, and opening it up and starting to review impressions of the movements that you wish to learn. And you can use that. I use this with fighters. You can use this with acrobatics. You can use this with whatever you want to do. And actually, elite level athletes are using it. Some of them are calling it mental training or visual training. But what they are really doing is they are enhancing and engraving certain impressions for later use. And that's where I would start to go.
To be honest, I disagree with Ido on a lot of different topics, but this one here is bang on. When I developed my, ability to move my arm, what really resonated with me is when he mentions how obsessive you have to be, and just developing that. If you couldn't move your hands and you have to explain to someone like to move your hand, what does that mean? Like, how would you describe that? How would you describe what muscles are you actually firing to say cock back your wrist? And it's just that visualization, just trying to connect with whatever that feels like. And I feel like as soon as you crack that code, you know, the hand will actually move.
Yeah, I think too, as a human species, once we see something as possible, think that, okay, if someone can do it, then maybe anyone can do it, right? So seeing it happen in a video, seeing someone do a move, you know, picturing yourself, visualizing yourself doing the movement, just believing that it's possible is already half the battle. And I know, you know, we talked about this in another podcast, but like the 4-minute mile is a great example. It's like it was impossible to be done. But as soon as it was possible, as soon as one person did it, I think the next year, 30 people did it. The year after that, 300 people did it. Whereas 3 years prior to the 300, it was impossible. But as soon as people knew something could be done, and whether it's visually or just seeing a video of someone doing that 3-minute mile, automatically something in your brain says, okay, we can do this. This is possible. And then more people do.
A lot of these strategies are already used in sports, especially in the UFC. Books are written about it. You know, they refer to it as the theater of your mind. Your brain can't tell between your imagination and reality. So say like a UFC fighter, George St. Pierre, when you see him go into the ring and he spits the water in the air, or he touches the middle of his chest and the back of his neck, where he even visualizes winning a fight and he visualizes himself doing that movement before the fight. So he can really, it almost feels like deja vu, like he's done it before, even though he's never been there, and that'll help him win that fight.
So now I don't know if I agree 100% with Ido Portal. I think he comes off as a little bit, you know, interesting character. Let's just leave it at that. He's unique, yeah. But I think there is some merit into what he's saying. And after doing the interview, I sort of focused a little bit on my own movement, trying to move a little bit more. And he gave us 2 moves that he said were the basics that everyone should do. And one of them was just strictly hanging from a bar, like a chin-up bar. And the other one was sort of just, you know, getting about a little bit further than shoulder width apart, and then just bringing your butt all the way down to the floor in like a sitting sort of motion, and just move your butt around and just move like that. And then, you know, when I do meditation, when I'm always moving on, I'm always just being conscious of my body. And I really noticed a lot of differences. So I would just suggest to you guys is start being conscious of whenever you're doing something, just move your body in different ways. When you dance, when you're moving, lie down on the floor and just stretch and move and just really feel your body and try moving in different ways, and just be conscious of it, and you'll notice some big differences.
Definitely encourage anybody to check out Ido Portal and his work. You know, he's not without a lot of criticism, and maybe that's why he's a little testy. You know, he kind of gave us a little shit a few times and corrected us quite a few times.
I think Ant's going to roast him a bit. He's been talking about just...
he criticized us a few times in the podcast or in the initial interview. So I'm a big fan of the Fighter and the Kid podcast. It's crazy popular. And Brendan Schwab, who's used to be a UFC fighter, you know, he thinks it's bullshit. And this is a guy that's a top 10 fighter. And, you know, you figure he should know. And Conor
was he ever
McGregor,
number one? Was he ever number one, Brendan Schwab?
He wasn't, but he's pretty damn good. You know, there's a lot of fighters in the world, and he was at the top. And, you know, Conor McGregor was really good even before he met Ido Portal. Can you chalk up his success to Ido Portal? That's a tough one. You know, it's a tough one. Now, I'm not trying to roast him because I think he's incredible. I think he has a lot of good things to add. But sometimes things get highly, highly conceptual. And I think
people romanticize and you're not subscribing to it. Is that what you're about to say?
I'm not subscribing. That was a line used a few times, which, you know, the question is it going above our heads? Is he talking about something we just can't understand now? Or is he just kind of going off the deep end? What do you believe?
I don't know. You know, some people they'll go off the deep end and they'll create a product that is so different that he'll get people to subscribe to it. But are you
trying to say some false guru? That's what it sounded like.
Some people do that, I'm saying. But I think his following speaks to themselves. There's a lot of people are huge Ido fans that go to the movement classes. I think movement in itself is a big thing. And I think there is something there. I think you can enhance your life and enhance your athleticism through using movement practice. I think there's merit to it.
I pride myself on having a pretty good ability for detecting bullshit. I've had the unfortunate experience of meeting so many scammers in my life, and I have to be honest, this is the real deal. Learning how to move our bodies in different ways opens up new realms of possibility in not just the physical sense, but in the mental and spiritual way as well. I think Ido's concepts are simple on a superficial level, but really complex and not easily understood once you dive deeper. And to be honest, I have a similar experience while listening to Deepak or Eckhart. It just takes a while to really get it. And I think he sits on that fine line between being considered crazy and genius. But I plan to explore this movement culture further and hopefully get him out to Toronto. So don't be surprised if you see me doing a one-armed handstand one day.